NSFW, what was your worst one night stand experience? Brought her home but she didn't want sex but she wanted to grind while making out. Ended up with fabric burns on my dick and she stole my shorts. They were my favorite shorts. Hooked up with an attractive muscular tattooed gent. We were both drunk and I don't remember much about the sex. Woke up wet the next morning. Thought we were just sweating. Turns out he was so drunk he had pissed the bed. We sort of knew each other previous to the hookup. So I just laughed it off. Tried not to make him feel bad. The only thing that had happened was it had soaked the feather top. A year later we hook up again. Drunk. I had my reservations. Perhaps he pisses the bed every time he gets too drunk. 6 hours later I find out that reservations are correct. So I go home with this random girl. Woke up at her place in the morning. Bed empty. So I got dressed. And was going home. When I get into the kitchen. Her mother was sitting at the table with a kid. Greets me with hey. Emma had to go to work. She told me you were still asleep. Want breakfast? I kinda panicked and got out. Just to find out I had no idea where I was. Mother comes after and asks if I need a lift somewhere. I gave up and had a really strange ride back to the tram. That was your chance to hook up with the older model. Alright SX. We went to sleep. Woke up early but she was already gone. Found out she clogged my toilet sometime during the night and bolted. Went home with a random girl. Did our thing. Went to sleep like normal. I woke up at 7 AM and tried to get her up. She starts to stir. Then has a full-on seizure right on my bed. She was out of it for a good while afterwards. But, luckily, my co-worker gets seizures. So I knew what to do. Unfortunately, since I knew nothing about her medical history, I had to call her mom to see if she'd ever had a seizure before. Turns out she hadn't. So I had to take her to the local hospital where I had to explain, in front of her parents and her sister, that, no, I'm not her boyfriend. No, she couldn't dress herself, etc. The worst part, though, was when I was leaving. While she was all out of it, she had told me her dad's name was Jack. So I called him Jack all morning. Turns out his name was Zach. So Jack, I was banging your daughter. My name is Zach. Moments before penetration I found out she was 2 months pregnant and told me to come inside of her. I'm well aware of anatomy. But in my drunk state of mind I felt like I was gonna release into a fetus so I was laughing. Anyways. Fast forward an hour later she quietly threw up a little bit while during doggy style but let me finish and didn't tell me. I immediately plopped down and landed neck first into her puke. I left shortly after and she tried to give me a kiss without having brushed her teeth yet. I politely declined and walked a mile back to my car. Oh dude. This is probably one of the trashiest one night stand stories I've ever read. I had sex with a guy dressed as a pumpkin at a Halloween party. Unbeknownst to me. While we made out, his orange face paint smeared all over my face and totally ruined my Glinda, the Good Witch makeup and dress that I had spent weeks sewing. I don't know if he used orange shoe polish on his face, or what, but that stuff would not come off, no matter how much soap I used. Ugliest walk of shame ever. She pissed the bed. We banged then fell asleep. I woke up around 7 AM. To someone spraying air freshener on my sheets. I pretended I was asleep as she got a towel and tried to sop up her urine. This went on for about 15 minutes. She then got back in bed and she too pretended to sleep. In her urine, mind you. Till I woke up. I hastily told her she had to leave after I actually processed what had just happened. Personally, if I pissed the bed I would have just left. So at least she got one of your towels all full of piss too. I went on a date with this guy. Let's call him Randall. Back in 2006 or so. It was a pretty terrible date. But he was cute and I hadn't been laid in a while. So I accepted an invite back to his place. When we walked in, I was knocked back by the stench. Turns out he had an untrained Dalmatian that pissed and shit wherever it pleased, including in a pile of Randall's dirty laundry. Randall hadn't cleaned it up in a few days. Probably should have called it quits then. But again, he was cute. We had some clumsy and satisfying sex on his air mattress next to the pile of piss-soaked clothes, and then tried to fall asleep together. I think I gave it a good 20 minutes before I began to wonder if the piss fumes would pickle my brain. Then made some excuse and escaped. I think we're still Facebook friends. Bad sex. Then a crying weeping conversation about her father. I cannot ever remember wanting to be somewhere else so badly. It was horrid. It's okay. Man. You probably needed a good cry. Weird that you had such strong feelings about her father, though. Buddy came back from Taiwan after a year doing ESL. We had a big party to celebrate and it turned into a competition of who could drink the most Jaeger. I walked halfway home off campus before realizing I wasn't gonna make it. So I rang the doorbell of a girl I knew and passed out under her coffee table. Woke up naked in her bed the next morning and my dick looked like IFK'd a cheese grater. Slept with a girl who was slightly tighter than anticipated. But eventually we were going for it and had a great time. Wake up the next morning and my entire crotch and upper thighs are covered in blood. Place looks like a murder scene. Sheets look like an Italian vineyard. And we're both still smashed. Oh. And it wasn't my bed. Took 3 showers to remove the red from places. Took 3 showers to remove the red from places. This is something that comes up a lot that I don't understand. If you weren't clean during the first shower, why did you leave the shower? Why did you do it twice? You're allowed to stay in the one singular shower until you are clean. There aren't defined periods at which the shower ends other than the hot water running out. Or you are clean enough to leave. I don't get it. And I'm worried either that I'm showering wrong, or that everyone else is. Not me, but my roommate in the dorms was giving head in our room. I was in the living room, while drunk, and she must have been deep throating or something cause he hit her gag reflex hard and she puked all over his dick. He freaked out and stormed out yelling down the hallway. Never saw him again. She thought it was hilarious. She brought out the grapefruit. I fell asleep in mid-muff dive. Apparently she did too. I woke up at 5 AM and jerked my face away so fast I gave her a partial Brazilian. We laughed and had cereal. About 5 minutes into the deed, he starts saying, "I love you. I love you." As if that wasn't bad enough. The next morning I found the condom on the floor. There was no spunk inside. Had to go get the morning after pill and a full ST testing. Had a few drinks and we ended up at my apartment. Clogged up some guy's toilet pretty bad after a night of drinking and mediocre sex. Didn't even try to unclog it. Not me, but my best friend. Brought a girl home. Took her to his room and walked out 15 minutes later asking if I had a condom. He was wearing Red Wings on his cheeks. I didn't tell him. Once I rolled over too much in bed and fell out. As I was falling out, I hit my head on the partially open drawer of my only bedside table. I had to explain to everyone in church the next day that I got my black eye from my one night stand. They weren't impressed. Edit. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. Wait until my church finds out that banging my one night stand resulted in a golden shower. That'll impress them. 1 week later. At a party. Hey, I'm June. This is my boyfriend. Acquired username. Anyone else here checking to see if any of these stories sound familiar? We were both completely hammered. After some very weird and oddly satisfying sex. I needed to pee, but couldn't really walk. We decided, since we both had to go, to help each other to the bathroom. There was a lot of bumping around and laughing. When we got to the door, he let go of me and I hit the door and slid down on my face. He decided to just pee leaning against the wall. Blue sparks started flying because he was peeing on a socket. He electrocuted his dick. When I woke up, I had a running scab from the tip of my nose to the top of my forehead. I can't decide between breaking a girl's leg and another girl's 4-year-old son walking in the room while I was hidden under the covers with my fist inside his mother. She wouldn't let me pull it out while she had a 5-minute conversation with him. God, I love being single. SX. Sleep, wake up in bathtub, cold water, and one kidney gone. That's actually my worst fear. I went to a boarding school for almost 2 years. Finally come back home, barely 18, I'm out drinking with one buddy and 2 girls. Eventually that night I start hooking up with one of the girls and realize I am about to finally have sex again for the first time since back from school. Put it in her last less than 15 seconds and came inside her. Super embarrassed, fell asleep, wake up hours later to her asking her friend for advice and asking whether I'd pay for the morning after pill or not. Super embarrassed, I couldn't last. Hooked up with grenade at a wedding reception. Didn't want to do it, but I owed the buddy, and let's face it, I was drunk and wanted some play. She tried blowing me outside the hotel but was super bad and rough. She talked me into going back to my apt, which was close by, and rode me like a bike with flat tires. Just awful. Thankfully she finished me with a handy. Got cum in my own hair and on my pillow. Took her back to hotel and left her. Oh, she shot you with your own rifle? Not cool. The only ever one night stand I've ever had resulted in her ninja sticking a dry DLDO in my ass. Her ex apparently liked it and she had only ever been with him before. People laugh at it when I tell them about it, but it makes me feel so violated, and it makes first anythings with girls really complicated for me to work through. Woke up the next morning and rolled over to see that the guy had his back to me and had a portrait of Hitler tattooed on his back, as well as a smaller one of Charles Manson. The night before I was drunk and the lights were out, so I didn't realize it until the next morning. Definitely one of my biggest WTF moments. Are you sure it wasn't Charlie Chaplin and Jesus? Met a very attractive woman at the supermarket. She appeared to be in her mid to late 30s. I was 22 and that was okay with me. I checked her out while grabbing something off the shelf and bingo, no ring. I made an offhand comment to her about something and she replied, so I started making small talk. Yada yada, one thing led to another, and a couple hours later we were at her place making out on her couch when I took my Oakley sunglasses off my head and put them on her nightstand. I am not a bro, they were standard issue in the army but still very nice. We went back to her room and did the deed a couple of times, and while we were laying there I asked her how old she was and she said, well, I just turned 51. At that moment I just became uncomfortable. I know that age is just a number and all, but it still made me uncomfortable, so I left. And forgot my sunglasses on her nightstand like a chump. A hot 51-year-old that looked 30 something. Sign me the FCK up. Dude.